What's shaking, guys? MagicActivatr here, coach of the Memphis Drizzlies, bringing you guys our draft analysis / team breakdown for our Season 3 IBL team. That is right, the Memphis Drizzlies are back for Season 3 of the Indigo Battle League, and I am very stoked to be competing once again because it's been a while since I actually got to play in the IBL. I was a coach back in Season 1, and then I stepped down as a coach in Season 2 to actually run things behind the scenes, but now I'm back, and it feels really good to be back. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really fun season. A lot of the coaches in the IBL are very good friends of mine, so I think it's going to be a really fun time. It's going to be pretty chill, and I'm excited about it. I think we're going to have a blast. So if you're excited for the return of the Memphis Drizzlies, be sure to hit that like button down below. Give it your magic touch because your support is greatly appreciated. But like I said, today we're going to be breaking down the team that I drafted, kind of going over each of the picks that I got and why I picked the things that I did. You can actually already see the team that I picked on the screen right now in Showdown, but we're gonna go ahead and break down this draft. But before we jump into that, I do want to say that going into this draft, I really didn't have much of a plan at all. Like, normally there's a little bit of a strategy that I like to go by in terms of like drafting and everything, and I usually have like several options available for different roles that I want on the team. But this time around, I really didn't plan anything out at all. Like, I think there was only one Pokemon that I knew that I really wanted to scoop up, and if I didn't get it, I was going to be really upset. But outside of that one Pokemon, really I just kind of decided, you know what, let's try and draft kind of a different team this time around. Like, let's scoop up some Mons that maybe I haven't used before, or maybe it's been a Mon that I haven't used in quite a while. And let's just try and mix it up and make it, you know, a team that feels pretty fresh for me. Because like I said, I think it's going to be a fun season, and I just kind of want to, you know, enjoy my time, try some things out and see what happens. I mean, we're definitely going to try and pick up some W's, but we'll see what happens. So not much of a plan going into it, which I guess really didn't matter because we were 12th pick overall. Like, every other coach got to pick a Pokemon before I did in the first round, and since it's the IBL, we have the coach bans as well, so that meant that basically 23 Pokemon were gone before I ever got my first pick. So I don't think it would have done much good to plan out my first pick too much because I probably wouldn't have got it anyway. But anyway, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into my first pick, which you can see on the screen right now, which is Zygarde 50%. Totally didn't expect to be drafting this Pokemon. Didn't think much about it until it got to my pick. And when I was looking at what Pokemon were available, Zygarde really popped out to me because I haven't really had a chance to use Zygarde before. And it's a Pokemon that I know is like super good. I mean, you can look at these base stats right here and see that it's really solid. It's got 108 HP, 100 attack, 121 defense, 81 special attack, which is its lowest stat, 95 SPDF, and 95 speed. So really solid stats all around, pretty well rounded, which is very nice. And of course, being a dragon and ground type, this thing is a very solid offensive Pokemon. Dragon and ground type are both really good offensive typings. Ability wise, it only really, well, it gets Aura Break and Power Construct, but Power Construct is banned, and Aura Break is pretty much useless since Yveltal and Xerneas are banned anyway. So outside of that, ability wise, it's not doing a whole lot, but really the reason that you draft Zygarde isn't because of an ability, because it doesn't really need an ability to be solid. It's because of its moveset. And one of the main moves in that set that you draft this thing for is a move called 1000 Arrows, which is such a good move. It's a 90 base power, 100 accurate ground type move. So 10 base power lower than Earthquake, but with the added benefit of being able to hit Pokemon that are flying or have levitate, which is really nice, because normally you know, if you suspect a ground type move is incoming, you switch in a levitate user, a flying type, or like an air balloon user, something like that, to avoid the attack. But with 1000 Arrow, those Pokemon aren't safe at all. So that means that Zygarde has one of, I would argue, one of the best spammable moves in the game, because nothing really wants to switch in on 1000 Arrow without taking some damage. I mean, I guess you could switch a grass type in or something that resists ground, and it can take it pretty well, but even still, from a 100 base power or 100 base power Pokemon, firing off a 90 base power stab, 1000 arrow. I mean, that's not something that you just want to switch in on all willy-nilly. Outside of that, it gets some other really solid physical moves as well. Outrage obviously being the main stab for dragon typing. It also gets, I'm just going to kind of go through the list here. Crunch, Brick Break, I think it gets super power as well. Earthquake if we want to, go for the stronger move over 1000 arrow. It also gets, let's see here, Rock Slide, Stone Edge, super power, yeah, so it does get that. Zen Headbutt, which is pretty cool. I think it gets Iron Tail as well. Yeah, it does get Iron Tail. So pretty solid physical moves. It gets Dragon Dance for setup, which means that that 95 speed, which normally isn't super great, gets boosted up, and you're going to be pretty fast and hit really, really hard as well. It also gets Coil as another form of setup, so if you want to go a more defensive route, not worried about boosting your speed, you can go with Coil as an option, or you could just run both, to be honest. It gets Sub, so it can set up that way. One of the big things about it too is it gets Glare, which is really cool because Glare is kind of the better Thunder Wave, being 100% accurate and able to actually paralyze ground types, which Thunder Wave can't do because they're immune to Electric, which is really, really nice. It also gets Extreme Speed. I don't remember if I mentioned that already, but that's a super, super nice move to have on this Pokemon, especially as a first pick because it's one of the fastest priority moves in the game, and it's also really strong at an 80 base power. So having strong priority on a really good offensive Pokemon right out of the gate, I'm pretty happy about, and I think it's going to be pretty solid overall. Also, something that's a little bit different this season than in the past is since Z moves are a thing, this year we actually have a budget that we could use to assign up to 3 Z users for our team, and depending on what tier Pokemon was how much it cost to make it a Z user. So I actually went ahead and made Zygarde my main Z user using 80 of my 100 Z points for this Pokemon, really mostly just to make him hit a lot harder. I mean, this Pokemon's already going to hit hard, but having access to Z moves is, I think, really going to benefit him, especially with some of the coverage moves that he gets, because now it's very viable for us to run Iron Tail because it becomes Corkscrew Crash. Same thing with some of these moves like Super Power, and I mean, even if I just want to throw it on for 1000 Arrow or Outrage, we're still going to be hitting super hard, especially if we can get like a Dragon Dance or something up before that. It's really solid. And on top of that, like I said, its special attack stat isn't really that bad either, and it gets a pretty solid pool of special attacking moves in Sludge Wave. It gets, Draco Meteor for stab over there, Earth Power. So I mean, it's got options if we decided to, for some reason, go a special route with it. I don't know that we would, but I think Alex might have done that at some point last season. So who knows? We might find a way to do it. But honestly, I was pretty happy with this pick for first round. I think it was something that, like I said, it's something I haven't used before, so I thought it would be very fun and interesting to try out. It feels really fresh. I know it's a 6th gen Pokemon, but it kind of feels like a 7th gen Pokemon because they didn't do too much with it in 6th gen. And I think it's a Pokemon that I could pretty solidly build a team around as a first pick. So very happy about that. Now, since I was 12th pick overall, that meant I immediately got to pick another Pokemon after Zygarde because it was a snake draft, meaning that the order alternates each round. So I got to pick 2 Pokemon in a row, but then I was going to have to wait a really long time before it got back to me. So for my second pick, I ended up scooping up none other than Milotic. Now, I know I said I wanted to use Pokemon that I haven't really used much before, but it's Milotic, and I love this Pokemon so much. It's kind of one of those staple Pokemon for me in draft. In fact, I think there's only been like one draft that I've done that I haven't scooped up Milotic. Like this, as far as bulky water types go, this is my absolute favorite, and I would argue the best bulky water in Draft League. Like, honestly, I know we got some new stuff like Primarina and Tapu Fini, but for me, man, Milotic still is among the best. Toxapex as well is another good one that we got, but Milotic still just holds it down as a super good bulky water type. I mean, you know what this thing does. It comes in, it eats hits. It's got really solid defensive stats, 125 in Spadef, 79 in defense, which doesn't look that great, but one of the big selling points for this Pokemon is the ability Marvel Scale, which means that if we get status, we're going to get a boost to that defense, which is really, really nice. It also has another great ability in competitive. Cute Charm is one of those that, don't say I won't use. I'm not gonna say I won't use it because I might use it. I'm not gonna lie, but it's a little bit more RNG. But you know, you never sleep on it. It could happen, but Milotic does what Milotic does. Reliable recovery and recover. Scald to help with that kind of lower defense because it can get burns. Ice Beam. What's really nice about it is it gets Haze and Dragon Tail both. Which are really nice for Pokemon that want to try to come in and set up. You can keep those stat boost eliminated, which is really, really nice. It gets access to Toxic, of course. It can set up Light Screen. Can it set up Reflect as well? I don't think it can. No, it can't set up Reflect, but it can set up Light Screen. It's got Refresh to cure itself of status if we're not running Marvel Scale, which could be... you know, because like I said, competitive is actually a really good ability for it as well. And then it's got, you know, a few other fun things in there: Mirror Coat, Psych Up, and some other little things. You know, you never know. You might run some crazy tech, but I mean, most of the time with Milotic, you know, you can pretty much expect Scald, Recover, Ice Beam, and then like maybe Toxic or Haze or something like that. But you know, for a bulky water, Milotic does the job better than just about anything. And like I said, I love Milotic. It's one of those mons that it's hard for me to not to, you know, pass it up if it's there. And, you know, honestly, it works really good with Zygarde as well, because with that double weakness to ice, Milotic can come in and eat up those hits, and then Zygarde complements Milotic back because it's immune to the electric weakness that Milotic has, which is really, really nice. But that's my second pick. I'm pretty happy about. I mean, I can never be mad if I get Milotic. Let's be real. Let's be real. Milotic is great. But moving on to our third pick, we had to wait for it to go all the way back down the order and then come back again. And for my third pick, I decided to go ahead and scoop up the one Pokemon in this draft that I knew I absolutely wanted to get, and that is Incineroar. This was the one Pokemon that I knew up front, I have to try and get this thing, no matter what. I knew it wasn't a first or second round pick most likely, but I was very, very happy it was still around by the third pick, because this Pokemon, I think, is going to be super, super nice. Fire Dark typing, which is really nice. You can look at these stats here, which are really pretty solid. 115 attack, 95 HP, 90 defense, 90 special defense, so fairly bulky. He's a slower mon at base 60, so not the fastest thing in the world, and 80 special attack, which isn't really terrible. I mean, Zygarde is 81, and I said that wasn't bad, so I guess I gotta be consistent here. But yeah, pretty solid all around. But the thing that really sells this Pokemon for me this season is the fact that recently he got access to Intimidate. Intimidate is his hidden ability, which is finally available, and I think it's gonna make Incineroar so much better than it was before, because I think like the Pokemon that comes to mind when I think about like defensive fire typing is Arcanine. Like, Arcanine is one of the best fire types to use in Draft League format, in my opinion. He has a decent amount of coverage moves. He can be defensive but still hit really hard. A good bulky offensive Pokemon. And Incineroar reminds me of it so much. And in some ways, I think Incineroar could potentially be better than Arcanine. In fact, since Intimidate Incineroar came out, I think it's become one of, if not the most used Pokemon in VGC, which I know is a completely different format, but I'm just saying, like, this thing has become so much better just because of getting Intimidate. And on top of that, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, he got like a ton of move tutor moves, and Incineroar already had a decent move pool as it was, but with these move tutor moves, man, he has like got a solid set of attacks in his arsenal. You got acrobatics there. Well, let's cover the bases here. fire type attacks. You've got Flare Blitz is like your biggest damaging move. Obviously, you take recoil from that. If you don't want to do that, you can run Fire Punch. You can also run. I've seen. I think it was pretty common to run like Fire Blast on the set instead of running like Flare Blitz or something. He gets Flame Charge, so you can attack and actually boost your speed in the process, which is pretty cool. Dark type. You get Darkest Lariat, which is actually a really cool move because it ignores stat changes for the opponent, which is really, really rad. He gets Crunch as well. Thanks to Move Tutor, he actually gets Knockoff now, which is super, super nice because Knockoff is such a good move. Like, going for a Knockoff is rarely a bad move because if nothing else, you're knocking off an opponent's item or scouting out what type of item they have, like whether it's if they're holding a Z Crystal or a Mega Stone or whatever, which is really, really nice. And like outside of that, he gets solid coverage. Like pretty much all the coverage that Arcanine gets, Incineroar gets something similar to it. So like, I know one of the big things Arcanine gets is Wild Charge. Well, Incineroar doesn't get Wild Charge, but he actually gets Thunder Punch, which I would argue is actually a little bit nicer because I don't like taking recoil damage from Wild Charge. And Thunder Punch, not quite as strong, but you're not taking that recoil damage. And on top of that, he gets a lot of the other things like Brick Break, Cross Chop, Drain Punch, which is actually really, really nice. He gets Drain Punch and Leech Life, which both can actually help try and keep your HP up, which is really, really cool. I think it's going to make Incineroar a really good Assault Vest user because outside of those moves, he doesn't really have any type of recovery like Arcanine does. Arcanine relies on Morning Sun to stay healthy or leftovers or whatever. But with Incineroar, you can run Assault Vest and then run Drain Punch and Leech Life, whatever, and that's going to help keep you healthy, which is really, really nice. He also gets Outrage, which, you know, kind of iffy if you would run that, but he does get that, which is pretty nice. Low Kick for those super, super heavy Pokemon. He gets Iron Head as well. And I'm sure I'm missing some of this just kind of scrolling through. Acrobatics. He doesn't get any priority, which is a little bit of a bummer because Arcanine does get E-Speed. Fake Out is the only priority he really gets, which isn't the most useful because you only get to use it once on your first turn that you switch it in. But, I mean, I guess it's still there. But he does get U-Turn, which is really, really cool because I love Intimidate U-Turn, like, on a Pokemon. Like, Landorus with Intimidate U-Turn or Staraptor with Intimidate U-Turn is really cool. And what's really interesting about this is because Incineroar is slower and more bulky, he can actually act as a slow U-Turner, which is really, really interesting. I've never tried that with Intimidate before, so that should be pretty fun. And outside of that, he gets set up with Swords Dance, Nasty Plot, so he can really be ran either way. He still gets Will-O-Wisp and Roar. So honestly, I really think Incineroar is going to be a solid Pokemon. It also gives me a Dark typing, which normally I forget to draft. So having a Dark type, like, so far I've already covered like several things that I usually don't think about drafting. Priority and a Dark type. So I'm actually kind of doing pretty good for myself in this draft so far, covering some bases that I normally forget to. So like I said, I'm really excited about Incineroar. I think it's going to be a really, really good Pokemon, and I'm glad I got it because, like I said, this was the one Pokemon I knew I wanted to get in the draft. But after getting Incineroar, I went ahead and got my next pick, which was Crobat. And Crobat is a Pokemon that I really, really love. I've loved Crobat since back in Gen 2, which is what I grew up with, but the only problem back then was he wasn't very good. Like, his best move was Fly, and that was really the only move that was decent. Because, like, he doesn't get Crunch or anything like that. There wasn't any other, like, better flying moves, but slowly Crobat kept getting better. Like, things like Brave Bird and Roost came out, Defog, stuff like that, but it was one of those things where it was like I just couldn't get out of my mind that Crobat was like not a very good Pokemon because I just kept thinking about Gen 2. But Crobat is honestly a really, really good Pokemon. And one of the things that sold me on getting Crobat, I was actually between Crobat and I think Whimsicott here because I knew I wanted a Pokemon that kind of synergized with Incineroar typing wise and kind of complemented each other. And I knew I wanted a faster Pokemon and potentially something that could remove Hazard, because obviously Incineroar is not a big fan of Stealth Rock. So I was between Crobat and Whimsicott, and ultimately ended up going with Crobat, mostly because I love that base 130 speed, man. That is so nice having 130 speed. The rest of his stats are not anything too insane. 90 attack is the next highest stat, which you would think isn't like super crazy, but this Pokemon with Brave Bird, oh my goodness, he does so much damage with Brave Bird, which is so nice. Ability wise, he gets Infiltrator and Inner Focus. Inner Focus can be useful, but Infiltrator is like super nice, because this allows us to actually bypass Light Screen, Reflect, Aurora Veil, and Substitute, things like that, and just straight up do damage, which is really nice. Like I said, with Brave Bird, like even things that resist Brave Bird, like Brave Bird on Crobat does a lot of damage. It's just absolutely insane. But like I said, he gets Defog, which is really nice. And Crobat, like I said, really complemented, I think, Incineroar's typing, because Incineroar, weak to ground, Crobat is immune. Incineroar is weak to fighting, Crobat 4 times resist. In fact, Crobat's a really good defensive Pokemon, because Poison Flying actually has several really solid resists for it, which is nice. He does have a few weaknesses as well that kind of match up with some of the other Pokemon, like Ice with Zygarde, Electric with Milotic, and even Rock with Incineroar. But I think with Roost, we'll be able to kind of negate that, and Defog, being able to defog rocks away to help out Incineroar, I think is going to be really nice. Outside of that, he gets Leech Life, which, like I said, now that it's buffed, it's honestly really good. Helps you recover HP if you don't want to run Roost and want to run an offensive move instead. He gets Acrobatics. If you want to be that guy, don't run an item, run Acrobatics, and then you don't take the recoil damage, and you're still going to be hitting pretty deadgum hard with this thing. He also gets U-Turn for switching out. I'm trying to think of some other stuff off the top of my head. Tailwind is actually really cool, because we can set that up, help support the rest of our team if we're looking a little bit sluggish. U-Turn for pivoting out. X-Scissors and Headbutt. So he's got a few options for changing things up. And one of the things that's become pretty popular as of lately is Nasty Bat, running Nasty Plot and then special moves, because boost your special attack 2 stages, you're going to start doing some damage with these special moves. And he has some pretty cool coverage moves when you get on the special side, like Dark Pulse, Heat Wave, Giga Drain. So some really cool stuff over there. So don't sleep on Special Crobat. Like, there's a good chance that you might see that at some point this season, if I can find the right time to bust it out. But I'm very excited to use Crobat. It's a Pokemon that, like I said, I've loved it for a long time, but I've always just kind of been skeptical of ever using it, because I'm so used to, because I can't get out of the Gen 2 mindset of it being so bad. But I honestly think it's going to be do some work. Also, shout out to my boy Nick, who isn't in the IBL this season, Reckless Bat, but he's on our team, so he's in our hearts. Anyway, moving on to the next Pokemon that I scooped up. This was after having to wait for quite a while to get back, and I ended up scooping up Mienshao. Now, Mienshao is really exciting to have, because one, actually this is the second Pokemon on my team that I've used before in a draft. I had it in the GBAD League for Season 3, but I love this Pokemon. At this point, my team was pretty slow outside of Crobat, so I knew I wanted some speed, and I kind of really wanted a fighting type because of that double rock weakness with Incineroar and Crobat. So Mienshao was a Pokemon that I looked at that really just kind of fit the bill. It's a pretty fast Pokemon at 105 speed, so it can outpace a lot of those base 100s, which is really nice. A 125 attack stat means that this thing is going to hit like a monster. The rest of its stats aren't anything too crazy. 95 special attack actually isn't bad. That's actually something that's usable. And considering his move pool, it is something that we could potentially do. Ability-wise, though, Mienshao is really blessed in the ability section, because he gets Reckless, which is really nice because of a move called High Jump Kick. And High Jump Kick with Reckless means that this thing is going to hit like a truck. Like, you don't want to get hit by a Reckless high jump kick. But outside of that, that's really the only main move that Shou gets benefit from running Reckless with. I mean, there might be some others, but off the top of my head, that's like the main reason that you run Reckless. But outside of Reckless, he also gets a Regenerator. And this is one of the big reasons I love Shou, is Regenerator allows him to regain a third of his health every time that he switches out and comes back into battle, which is really, really nice because with Shou being pretty much a glass cannon, he's pretty fast and hits really hard, but not the best Pokemon defensively. Well, Regenerator, and the fact that he's a Pokemon that likes to come in, attack, and switch out, he can really take advantage of Regenerator, because with U-turn, things like U-turn, meaning that you're going to pivot out into another Pokemon and get that health back, is really, really nice. And when you consider the fact that he resists Stealth Rock and other hazards aren't quite as common as Stealth Rock, even if you take that hazard damage from, say, spikes or something like that, you're going to come back in, Regenerator is going to heal you up, and you're going to be solid. Even if you get, like, hit with toxic spikes, you're only going to be in a turn or two anyway. You switch out, when you come back in, you're going to regain that health back. So Regenerator is honestly a really good ability, and oftentimes I find myself running Regenerator more often than Reckless, to be honest. And that, coupled with the fact that he gets Drain Punch, means that this is a glass cannon with staying power. Like, even though he's a Pokemon that doesn't like taking hits too much, he can stick around, because even like things that would normally wear him down he's going to be able to stay healthy with Regenerator, which is really, really nice. So outside of that, moveset wise, Fake Out, which is pretty nice on this Pokemon anyway. Being able to fake out a Pokemon, make sure they flinch, and then get some more damage off, potentially like pivot out with U-turn just to get all that extra chip damage. Solid moves and high jump kick, drain punch, and solid coverage moves as well. He gets acrobatics, which is pretty cool. Kind of situational when you can use that, but it is something to consider. He also gets knockoff, which we talked about with Incineroar. It's just a super good move all around. Gets Poison Jab, Stone Edge, Rock Slide, Power Up Punch if you want to, just get a little bit of damage off and boost your attack. He can set up with Swords Dance, Baton Pass, set up a substitute Taunt. He's a pretty fast Taunt user. So honestly, just an all-around solid Pokemon. He also gets Calm Mind. So like I said, that 95 base special attack, don't sleep on it, because we might do that at some point. You never know. You never know. But like I said, I love Shou. Shou is one of my favorite fighting types. I have used it before, but I just felt like it was a very fitting Pokemon to scoop up at the time. Our next pick, though, however, is probably the most iffy pick of my entire draft. I knew I wanted an electric type, a pretty fast one at that, and actually it was the same round. I think it was Davian that scooped up Jolteon, and it reminded me, I was like, oh shoot, Jolteon is normally like the fast electric type I got, but I'm not picking that this time, so what am I gonna do? And so I was looking at what was available, and really the only things that stuck out to me were Raikou, which I have used before actually, and also he was an A tier pick, and since I just picked Shou, it was kind of like, I don't know if I want to spend all the extra points on Raikou. And the other one was Electrode, and I'm gonna be honest, the only reason Electrode stuck out to me was the fact that he has a 150 speed, which is absolutely insane. And also the fact that Dan loves this Pokemon. My boy Hawk loves this Pokemon. Like, he used Electrode last season, and I think he's even said like Electrode is the Pokemon that he feels he uses best in Draft League format. So like, I was like, dude, I'm gonna pick Electrode, and then I picked it and was immediately like, oh my goodness, I don't even know if I can use this thing. But we'll see what happens. It might end up getting traded off, but maybe Dan will show me the secret ways of using Electrode. But Like I said, 150 speed, which is really the selling point of this Pokemon. The rest of his stats, kind of, meh. Like, 80 special attack is the next best thing, which is pretty poor, honestly. I mean, it's decent if that's not, like, your second highest stat. Like it's decent on Incineroar and it's decent on Zygarde because they have solid attack stats, but 80, I mean, it's usable, but you know, not normally what I like on an electric type, but we'll see what happens. Ability wise though, it gets some neat stuff. Aftermath is kind of nice because if it gets KO'd with a contact move, the Pokemon loses a fourth of its health. Static could be useful, and Soundproof, being able to keep it having immunity to soundproof moves. It says including Heal Bell. I'm gonna have to look into that. I don't know if that means that if the opponent uses Heal Bell, he stops it, or if it means that he's just isn't affected by Heal Bell if another. I'll have to look into that because I'm not exactly sure what that means. But anyway, outside of that, he does the fast electric type thing, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt. He gets Taunt, I do know that, which is really nice because he is a pretty speedy Pokemon. He gets Sucker Punch, I forgot about that. So I guess he has some priority as well, which is kind of nice. He can Explode, which is cool. Signal Beam, it doesn't look like he gets Shadow Ball, which I'm used to having on Jolteon, so I don't know about all of that. I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of iffy on this one. I don't know if I made the right call on picking this one. This was like just kind of like a hasty pickup. I wasn't really thinking too much about it. I was just like, hi, I need a fast electric type. Hawk likes Electrode. I'm gonna grab that. So we'll see what happens with this Pokemon. But going into my next pick, we get to the point where I actually kind of start planning out my draft a little bit more. We're getting down to the last few picks. And this is the point where I actually planned out the rest of my draft and had like several ideas about the way that I wanted to go. And so the next Pokemon that I ended up picking up was Klefki. Now, this is the third Pokemon that I have used before, but I haven't used it too much. I got it back in Season 1 of the IBL and actually got it as a transaction like mid-season, so I only used it for like half a season. But Klefki just was a really fitting Pokemon for my team at the time, I feel like. Now, if you look at its stats, it's nothing too crazy. 91 is its highest stat, which is pretty wild. But what's really cool about Klefki is he actually like adds a lot of things to my team that I currently didn't have. So he adds a Steel type, which is really nice. And for a Steel type, I really like Klefki because he's only weak to ground and fire. And he does get access to Magnet Rise, which means that he can basically get rid of that ground type weakness, which is really, really cool. But the other things that he adds to my team is he gives me a form of entry hazards, which I currently did not have, and I really, really wanted to have. And Klefki is really, really good at setting hazards. He gets spikes, which means that he can set up multiple layers of those. And with the ability Prankster, this Pokemon is so nice, especially at setting up hazards, because he's pretty much always guaranteed to get up at least 1 or 2 layers of spikes, which is really cool. But the other cool thing about Prankster is it means that any of our status moves are going to have priority. So we'll have priority spikes, we'll have priority thunder waves, we'll have priority toxic, priority Calm Mind, Iron Defense, Switcheroo, that could be a really cool one. Basically, any of these non-damaging moves that we can run all get priority, which is really cool. And he actually gets access to Defog too, which I didn't think about until kind of after the fact. And I was like, yo, that's actually really, really nice because 1, Prankster Defog, but 2, the fact that that gives us another option for defogging outside of Crobat. So we can actually bring Crobat and not have to run defog on it if we bring Klefki, which is really, really cool. Outside of that, offensive move wise, he's not anything too crazy. He gets Reflect and Light Screen, which is really nice, especially with the Prankster. But offensively, nothing too much stands out. I mean, you got Dazzling Gleam, Play Rough, so you can kind of be like physical or special. Gets Play Rough, which can be nice. I mean, not Play Rough. He gets Play Rough, but Foul Play. That's the move I was thinking of. Flash Cannon. So nothing too crazy. I mean, this Pokemon, you're not really using it for the offense anyway. You're using it for the utility, and this Pokemon is great at utility. Not much in terms of recovery outside of rest, so you're probably going to be running like leftovers or something on it to keep it healthy, but outside of that, oh, it also gets Fairy Lock, which is a really, really cool move that actually locks in the opponent for the next turn. So like, if we're getting hammered and it's like, yo, I'm about to go down this turn, Prankster Fairy Lock, we lock that Pokemon in, and then we can bring in something to basically take revenge for free because they're not going to be able to switch out, which is really, really cool. So I'm pretty happy with Klefki. Like I said, I've used it before, but not like, I've only used it like half of the season, so it still feels kind of fresh, and I love this Pokemon. And I think at this time, it just was like the right fit for my team. And I'm excited to have it. Moving on to the next pick, though, is another Pokemon that I'm super stoked about because I slept on this Pokemon in the past, and it's Piloswine. So, like I said, I've slept on this Pokemon because I've always thought, like, I've heard of people drafting Piloswine, and I was like, okay, that's cool, I guess. I mean, you know, you can throw a Violite on it, I guess it's pretty decent. But I really didn't realize how good this Pokemon was until I was in the D League and actually had to prep against a team that had Piloswine on it. And I was like, oh my goodness, Piloswine is so much more of a problem than I expected it to be. Because if you look at its stats are actually really, really good. 100 HP, 100 attack, 80 defense, and 60 special defense, which isn't the greatest, but when you throw the Violet on it, those defenses are getting boosted, and then its speed is 50. Its stats really aren't all that different from Mamoswine outside of speed. Its attack is a little bit lower, I think, and then its defenses might be a little bit lower. I think the defenses are the same, but either way, when you look at it and consider like throwing a Violite on here, it's basically a slower but more bulky version of Mamoswine because it nearly has the same attack stat even, which is pretty insane. Like 100 attack is nothing to snivel at. I mean, that's what Zygarde has, to be honest. And what's cool is this Pokemon gives us another Stealth Rocker, or another form of hazards with Stealth Rock. We don't have any other mons that have Stealth Rock, I don't believe. I don't think Zygarde gets it. But it can fire off Earthquakes. It gets priority with Ice Shard, which is nice. So another form of priority, which is really good, especially with all these Pokemon that are weak to Ice that run around. And with the ability Thick Fat, it just makes him all the more able to take hits, which is really, really cool. So I like this Pokemon. Move pool wise, you know, it tends to run kind of the same things usually, but it does a really, really solid job. And like I said, I've slept on this Pokemon in the past, but after realizing how decent it actually is, I knew I wanted to try to use this when I got the chance. So I got the chance. I needed a knee tier mon, and this was still there, so I scooped it up. Moving on to the next pick, though, we scooped up a grass type, and actually the fourth B tier mon for this team. I've got a lot of B tier Pokemon on this team, but that's pretty good though, because it's like the second highest tier. But we went ahead and scooped up Tangrowth, and I'm very happy about this pickup, mainly because of all the people who were just like, ugh, whenever I picked it up because they don't want to have to deal with this thing. Tangrowth is one of the best grass type Pokemon in the game, especially when you're talking defensive grass types. You look at its stats, it's really solid, 100 HP, 125 defense. Its special defense is 50, so it's not all that, but usually you're running like Assault Vest on this thing, so it really evens out its bulk. And with a 100 attack and 110 special attack, this thing is another great example of bulky offense. Like, it can hit really hard and take solid hits, which is really good. It also gets Regenerator, which is another thing that really sold me on this Pokemon, because now we have two Regenerator Pokemon in Shou and Tangrowth, so we kind of have a little bit of a Regenerator core going, which can be pretty cool, I think. I'm very excited about that. And it gets Chlorophyll and Leaf Guard, so I guess if we run a Sun team for some reason, I mean, Klefki does get Sunny Day, Prankster Sunny Day, so... but I really wouldn't put too much money on that, but you never know. And then moveset-wise, it gets some pretty solid options. Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, Earthquake is there if you want to, you know, have something to hit fire types that might try and come in on you. Knockoff, another great knockoff user. And then if you don't want to run an Assault Vest, you all of a sudden get access to a lot of these really good status moves as well. Sleep Powder, Toxic, Synthesis to stay healthy. You can run, I just saw something a second ago. What was it? Leech Seed. Leech Seed, which is really, really great because that can help you stick around and also potentially provide health to another Pokemon if you switch out. And honestly, just some all-around solid moves on this Pokemon. So the main thing about it is it's really annoying to try and take down because with that solid defense stat, solid HP stat, and then like I said, if you throw the Assault Vest on it, couple Regenerator with it, this thing can be a real nuisance to take down. So I think it's going to be a really solid Pokemon, especially when you throw it in with the Fire, Water, Grass core of Incineroar and Milotic. I mean, that's what I call a bulky offensive Fire, Water, Grass core, and I am super, super stoked about it. So I think this was a good pickup, especially to be able to pick it up this late in the draft. So I'm very, very happy with that. Moving on to our next pick. Since we picked all of these B tier mons, we only had enough points left for an E tier mon using our free points. And so I was looking through the E tier picks, trying to really find something that was either a flying type or had levitate because I wanted something off the ground. And I noticed Rotom. And I looked at the other two Rotom forms in the E tier, which were Rotom Frost and Rotom Fan. And neither of them really appealed to me, mainly because they were weak to rock. But I got to thinking about it and I was like, but what about regular Rotom though? Because Electric Ghost is kind of nice. Because, I mean, the only thing Electric is weak to is ground. And with Levitate, it gets rid of that weakness. So that basically means that Rotom is essentially a Ghost type with Electric Stab. Now, obviously, if something has Mold Breaker or we get grounded by gravity or something like that, we got to be careful of that. But for the most part, you're basically looking at a Ghost type with Electric Stab, which is really nice. Now, his stats aren't quite as good as his alternate forms. 91 speed makes him, I think, faster than the others, but the rest of his stats aren't super great. 95 special attack is pretty good, especially considering Electrode is only 80. Why did I pick that name? Because I love Hawk, that's the reason. But anyway, so stat-wise, it's decent. Mostly got it for the Levitate, but honestly, after looking at it, I mean, it's not a bad pickup for us because one, it gives us a Ghost type, which means spin blocking, so we can prevent people from setting up or from removing hazards with Rapid Spin. It also gets Defog, which a third Defog user, so that's more hazard removal for us, which is nice. I'm really kind of glad that all the Rotoms got Defog. That's pretty sweet. But you know, outside of that, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, it gets double status, actually triple status, Thunder Wave, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, which is really nice. It gets, because it also gets Hex, which means that you can do a whole lot of damage if you get that off. This is a great Scarf Pokemon because it gets access to tricks, so especially some of those annoying Pokemon like, say, like that are really defensive and like to sit there and like kind of stall you and stuff. Tricking a Scarf onto them can really put them in a pickle, which is really, really cool. He gets Sucker Punch as well. I got a lot more Pokemon with priority than I realized I did. I mean, I don't know that we would run Sucker Punch on Rotom, but even still, it is there. He gets Light Screen and Reflect as well, so I mean, I think for an E tier pickup and considering what else we had on our team, Rotom is a pretty solid option. And since we made Zygarde our main Z user, pretty much the only two Pokemon that we had enough points left to make a Z user were Piloswine and Rotom. And since Piloswine pretty much are gonna run a Violite on it, I mean, or else it's not going to be super great. Like, you're pretty limited on when you would run a Z Crystal on Piloswine. Rotom seemed like the logical option, and I think it's a pretty good one as well because, you know, we can run Never Ending Nightmare on it with Shadow Ball and potentially do a lot of damage, or we can run Gigavolt Havoc as well. And I think he gets some other decent moves as well, like Dark Pulse, so Black Hole Eclipse. Like, he's got some options with him, which is pretty nice. So I'm pretty happy with this for an E tier pickup. I mean, usually E tier pickups I'm never very happy with because it always just feels like, nah, I'm just trying to get something to fill in the team, and it usually ends up being Armaldo. But I'm pretty happy with these. Piloswine and Rotom I think are both pretty solid for our team, so I'm excited about it. And moving on to the last pick, I finally scooped up my Mega. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I actually had planned out which Mega I wanted to scoop up like pretty early on. Like, I had decided, or had thought about picking Mega Gardevoir from like the beginning, but probably about, you know, 4th, 5th round, I knew I really wanted to try and get Gardevoir. But the cool thing was a lot of people had already picked their Megas, and I think there were maybe like 2 or 3 people left besides me who hadn't picked Mega. So I was like, you know what? I think I can kind of wait this out because based on the way they're drafting, I really don't expect them to try and draft Gardevoir. And honestly, Gardevoir has kind of fallen off as being a popular Mega to draft, mainly because Pixelate got a little bit of a nerf this generation. But even still, I think Mega Gardevoir is a great Pokemon, and I was very happy to scoop it up. In fact, I had Gardevoir in the D League, but I had to get rid of it like after a couple of weeks because I needed to get something with hazard removal because, like I said, sometimes I forget to fill out things on my team, and hazard removal is one of those things that but either way, I was really sad when I had to get rid of Gardevoir because I really like it as a Pokemon, and Mega Gardevoir honestly just improves on it in pretty much every way. I know Pixelate got nerfed. It used to be change normal types to fairy type and boost it by 1.5. Now it's only 1.2, which isn't quite as good, but I mean, still, dude, look at this special attack stat, 165. That's insane, dude. Like, that's actually insane. That's so much damage that you're going to be doing. Like, even without the 1.5 boost on your Hyper Voices. Like, that's insane. And the other cool thing about Gardevoir is, like, I'm pretty sure Gardevoir can hit every Pokemon for at least neutral or super effective damage, which is because of its coverage, which is pretty cool. And 135 in special defense means that this thing can also take hits from the special side, give us kind of another option as a special wall. 100 speed is really nice because that was one of the things that hurt me a lot with using Gardevoir, was only being 80 speed. It didn't outspeed a lot of things that it could have potentially like hit really hard. Gardevoir at 100, I'm pretty happy with. 110 would have been nice, but I can't complain, especially with that special attack and special defense stat. Like, that's absolutely insane. And move pool wise, he gets Gardevoir is getting a really solid pool. Hyper Voice, which becomes Fairy type. He also gets Moonblast. He gets Moonblast, Psychic, Psyshock, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast. So like decent coverage all around. Energy Ball, Grass Knot. And then on top of that, it gets some solid support moves as well. Will-O-Wisp, Wish to help stay healthy, or you can Wish Pass with that, which is really cool. Thunder Wave for speed control, which can be nice because, you know, we can send Gardevoir in, predict the switch, Thunder Wave, something that would normally be faster than us, and then go in on it, which is really cool. It also gets, let's see, Light Screen and Reflect, which we aren't really going to be super effective to use on Gardevoir, Mega Gardevoir, since we can't hold the Light Clay since it is a Mega, but they are there. Destiny Bond, which could potentially be useful. Calm Mind is really nice because we can set up, and I mean, dude, you don't want Gardevoir to set up a Calm Mind with 165 special attack. Jeez, dude. Also gets Heal Bell, so we can keep our team healthy from status effects, and Healing Wish, which is something I really love. I love Healing Wish because things are getting hard and it looks like Gardevoir is about to go down anyway, we can basically sack it off and completely restore one of our other Pokemon that switches in after it, which is really, really cool. And I just realized it gets Shadow Sneak when I was scrolling through there, which is interesting. So it's another Pokemon with priority. So, I mean, maybe not the best since our attack is pretty low, but I mean, still, it is priority. So I can't complain about that. Definitely can't say I didn't draft priority this season, because I did have it. So honestly, I'm really happy with Mega Gardevoir, especially the fact that I was able to like hold off and save it for the last pick and kind of prioritize some of those other things before I picked this. And I think it's going to be a sweet team. So that is your Memphis Drizzlies for Season 3 of the IBL. I'm very, very stoked about this team, honestly. Like, everything except maybe Electrode. And it makes me sad because I want to make Hawk proud with it, but I don't know about that pick. I still don't know about it. But the rest of the team, I'm pretty excited about. This team feels pretty different for me. It feels pretty fresh, so I do like that. And I guess we'll just have to see how things roll out. But anyway, that, like I said, that is going to be your Season 3 Memphis Drizzly IBL team. If you like the team, or even if you don't, let me know what you think about this team in the comments below. Because I don't know, personally, I think it's going to be pretty cool. It feels very different. There may be some problems that we run into at some point, and we can try and patch those up with some transactions. But overall, I think this should be a pretty fun team to use, and a lot of the mons seem like they'll be fun. So we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, our first IBL battle is actually going to be going up later today after this video goes out against Nerdy Steve and the Rhode Island Reggies. I won't be doing a team builder this week for that, because I'm gonna break the fourth wall a little bit. We've already had the battle, and like I was all the way up until time for us to have our battle, like trying to get my team ready. So I didn't really have time to do a team builder, and I don't like doing team builders after I've had the battle, because it's hard to like kind of go over your thoughts after you know what's already happened. So no team builder this week. I am gonna try to do team builders when I can for the other battles. Hopefully I can do them for all the other battles, but like I said, first match will be going up later today, and every Sunday we should have an IBL match going up. So hopefully you guys are excited about this team. I'm excited about it, and I'm hoping the Memphis Drizzlies are gonna do pretty well this season. So if you did enjoy this draft breakdown and you enjoyed our team, be sure to hit that like button down below, give it your magic touch, because your support is greatly appreciated. For now, I'm gonna make like an abra and get out of here. So have yourselves a wonderful day, stay cool, and we will catch you guys later.